music down. So excited to be with you this Friday morning for HR Intuitive Institute. We're here for a lesson. Oh, gotta check this out. Lesson number 68, rules are necessary. So, the lesson for today. Oh, how are you doing? How is your week been? If you're new here, we'd love for you to say hello in the chat. Very excited to do this lesson with you today. I feel like today is the first time in a long time that I don't know if the question of if the actual thing is feeling prepared or organized, but I feel like I somehow today kind of have my crap together. I guess that's more so of what I am trying to communicate and share. As I keep sharing over and over again, which is also very, very relevant to the lesson that we're going to talk about today, that I've kind of been going with the flow and adapting and trying to do the best that I can with what I feel like I should be doing and sharing. And so I appreciate you giving me grace. I appreciate you being with me in this growth process, and hopefully things are resonating with you as we do that. Yeah. So let's talk about this lesson. Let's just get into that lesson, because that's what I was really excited about. You know, it's really interesting when I put these lessons together. I create like a framework initially, which is basically a listing for the entire month. So I'm getting ready to do it for November, but a listing for the entire month of just kind of prompts for every week. And then my intention has been to get to a place where I can actually reflect on the week, like I used to do for old school podcast Random Ramblings, what I used to do for old school Work Love, and then share it with you. The reality of committing to showing up every week at a certain time is that if you don't make time to prepare or to plan accordingly, you could not be prepared. And for me, it's been more important to show up and not to go silent. And actually today from a nerdy tech side, we have a system that manages our social media posts that we like to share on a regular basis. A lot of them are past HR Intuitive Institute lessons and podcast episodes. And we, like maybe 30, 60 days ago, went and upgraded our website and transitioned actually so that I am not the one who is managing the website solely, that it's an actual company that's doing so. And so when we did that, I had to go through and repopulate anyways. It's one of those just transition things that you have to do from an administrative side. But what the gift that was hidden in me having to review these past posts was twofold, because it was just very, very reflective. And once again, also a lot of that reflection fed into what I'm going to share with you today in our lesson. But looking at the evolution of getting to articulating that this is the HR Intuitive Institute, but even the transition, there was like a whole month of this messy transition where I knew that I wanted to do the Intuitive Institute, and I argued with myself if I need to like take all these months so I can plan accordingly, but then I'm like, it's never going to happen. So we just focused on rebranding it as the HR Intuitive Institute, which are the beautiful icons that you're seeing down below. And then I would just kind of figure it out. And so I'm watching my show notes and how I was navigating just doing the weekly shows, which there's still some really valuable nuggets in there, which is something that I've learned early on doing the podcast and just rambling, that there is the messages that are meant to be shared and meant to be heard. They're in there if I choose to show up. But it's just it's interesting, like, because now this week I feel like I'm not quite there, but I'm a lot more organized. I feel very comfortable about, number one, the lighting, the camera angle, what you're seeing, and I didn't have that before. So I feel like I'm getting closer, and it's just really cool to watch the evolution. So let's talk about this lesson for today about rules are necessary. And really at the bottom of it is this whole concept of tough love. It's people that are reminding you that there are rules and structures in place for a reason. And from an intuitive perspective, so if you're someone who's heavily intuitively driven, like myself, I definitely have a logical brain. I definitely can bust out from an HR compliance side if I have to. I don't like to hang out there. In fact, I choose to build and create a support team that has that logical brain so that I can hang out in my intuitive la la land, essentially, because I like to be in that vibration. That's just where I feel good. That's what I think really is where I want to spend my days. After doing a large amount of time hanging out on the logical side for most of my lifetime. And this lesson really resonated with me in the aspect of the relationship that I have with my best friend and my husband, which I actually shared this in my new book. There's a chapter in there that, the dynamics that I have between the two of them, where I'm extremely grateful for the way that they balance me out. But it goes so much deeper than that. And I think that this lesson kind of illustrates that, because it's not always about having they're beautiful relationships, but these perfect relationships where there are no struggles, because there's always struggles, there's always conflict. There's not this perfect what do I want to say, almost synchronicity between you and these people. Like, there's just not these perfect relationships. And they're my two closest relationships in my life, and they definitely take care of me and they keep me in check, and that makes me even value them more. So what am I talking about here? So let me give an example. This actually was shared by one of my friends, Rebecca Hanlon, on her Instagram, and it was one of those things that totally made me laugh out loud. I'm a huge Instagram fan. If you want to interact with me, the best place to do so is following me on Instagram, which is at Samm Smelter. And that's just where I hang out. I just love, I love using images as a way to communicate with people, but I also love learning and sharing with people. And I don't know, the visual aspect of just what you want to share in life is just, it's beautiful. It's like little mini art galleries of your life. And that's just me. Anyway, so she shared this comic from the awkwardyeti.com. And so you have this little anxiety bubble, and it says, I can't keep up with the demand this year, so I hired an assistant. And the Yeti's like, what? Who's going to pay for that? And then I'm giving it away. So I'm like the little anxiety bubble that says, oh man, I didn't think about that. The awkward Yeti is, it's okay. And then depression shows up. I guess I'll do it for free. And the awkward Yeti is like, shoo, not hired. No, really, it's fine. Shoo, shoo, shoo. So I laughed so hard because, number one, this is almost like if we were to just substitute Mary Rose and Samm, and how I do have these little bubble guys of places that I bounce around when I'm interacting with people. I mean, that's just where I'm at. That's how I function. And so I have my anxiety. I go through like this mild depression. But the things that these bubbles are saying, like, I'm trying to do so much. I have all these great ideas. I jump to these ideas, and then I don't think about the logical side. Financially just happens to be the big joke, because Mary Rose and Josh definitely balance me out in that aspect. And then my solution is always to make it up, is that I do things for free, to try to be that's the way I try to make it up. It's like, well, I don't have to have the money. And as an owner, I can just do it, and everything will work out. But there's something about money in general, which is something that I have been actively working on. And if you listen to the podcast, we do a Chapter Chats summer book club reading series that we just launched this past summer. But we read The Law of Divine Compensation, and Josh actually read that with me. But that book really resonated with me because I'm doing a lot of inner healing work on my stories around money. And I know I'm not alone in that. If someone does work where they feel like they're truly of service to others, we really, truly do struggle with accepting the fact that we have to get compensated for that and what that amount is. But at the same token, the exchange of money is very, very important because money is a energy, and it has to be exchanged for us to um, kind of have the proper balance in the world. And so that's something that I've always struggled with from very early on, not wanting to charge for my services, wanting to charge very little for my services, and also underselling what my skill sets were. And to be honest, this is kind of where it ended up at, is that routinely I was putting out there that, I was not respecting my worth and my energy. And not only that, like I struggle with that. I still to this day struggle with as much work as I've been doing for the last 5 years. Whatever your perceptions are for my business and how it has grown and it is doing successful, I still routinely struggle with respecting my worth and my energy. I want to give and I want to show up, and I feel like it's a disservice if you can't help and you're not helping. But what I always fail to realize is that when you just give and give and give, you stretch yourself so thin, and then the quality of what you can give and how you can show up and how you can be of service and how you can do these things that you need to be doing, it gets like diluted. And going back to this idea of me still sorting through these posts and me reflecting back on the quality of these posts and where I was functioning at my best was when I was really restrictive. And to be honest, it was like during the whole stay-at-home mandate here in Pennsylvania. So when we were truly in a state of quarantine, and I actually really functioned that way, um, yes, because of a fear and because of caution, but also because I am very strongly not introvertedly at my core. So I kind of really was excited and embraced the idea of not having to go out into the external world. But when that happened, just because of the state that the external world was in, a lot of the asks paused, or got postponed. And so I had this space open up, and I wrote the HR Intuitive during that time. That's when the bulk of that book was done. I was writing blog posts, I was creating videos, I was creating programs, and I was delivering them. So I was just looking back during that time, there was so much out there. And I would like to say it's because during that time I wanted to show up. It was because I could show up and I could be of service and I could do the things that I wanted to do because this is what was happening. This was the place that we were in. But really, at that time, I was forced to basically respect my energy. Um, and was I respecting my worth? I don't know. I think I was in the mode of wanting to give everything away for free again, which is always still a big internal battle. But over the last week in particular, and I guess like if I was going to say anything as I was putting this together, or finalizing my thoughts of what I wanted to share on this lesson, I would say that this lesson is probably one that's truly dedicated to Mary Rose and how grateful I am for her. But even in just the last week, as we do things that are making decisions regarding the business and navigating things, um, she really does help me maintain a boundary, and serves as a affirmation or reminder of how valuable my energy is, and that I am worthy. And I think that comes from a relationship of being open and vulnerable, and she knows that I struggle with that. This is not a best friend relationship where, I come to work every day and she's just like, oh, you're worthy. Oh, you're special. Oh, you're wonderful. I know that she thinks that I'm special and that I'm worthy and I'm wonderful. But the way that she shows it is that when I am unable to sustain those boundaries, she steps in and does them for me. She'll let me go on all of my random little bubbles. And if I'm like, I guess I'll do it for free, she'll say, no, you're not going to do it for free. We're going to go through the logical aspect. If that's the best business decision, that's one thing, but that's not going to be the default. If I want to be of service to somebody, and I'm like, well, I know that they can't afford, she's going to say, well, but you create free content. That's part of the reason why we do HR Intuitive Institute. And all these other, that's why you write the books. You have the resources for people who need them at those stages. You need to protect your energy and your time in order for you to show up and deliver and be of service the way that you want to in the areas that you want to, whether that is me writing or me training or me speaking. And she's right. And she helps give me permission, when I think I need it, because I'm just so hard on myself. As I've been going through this process of trying to create a level of balance in my life, my my life has not been it's just been a lot, I guess. It's as someone who wants to be helpful and wants to take things on and wants to do all of these amazing things, I found myself just saying yes, 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 yes. And as I was saying yes, I created this mammoth amount of work for myself, that put me at the bottom of the pile. And so I was not taking care of myself, which means I had this gigantic pile where everyone got a piece of Samm, but they were not getting the best of Samm. And there was a lot of situations where I volunteered for something and I would show up and be physically present, but I could not be fully present. And I was of no use. And she's helped me sort through places where things are more so taking away from my energy rather than nourishing and helping me flourish, and realizing that when I take care of me, when I'm able to show up, when I'm able to do the work that I need to do, when I'm able to develop the programs or the books or whatever manifests as a result, because I will tell you that during that stay-at-home mandate, all the things that I created, I never envisioned that I would have created at that time or before or a year ago, but I did. So when I truly get to that vibrational state where things are clear and I am really able to, my struggle is like this much with my worth and my energy and being respectful of it, on a regular basis, what will that world look like? And I think I've referenced this in a previous lesson, but there's this clip from a movie called Facing the Giants, with a death crawl scene. And regardless, they talk about like how far this football player is going to be able to make the field doing this death crawl. He thinks 30 yards. The coach tells him 50 yards. He ends up doing the entire field. And so I always use this to talk about this end zone concept of, we always are setting for ourselves a 30-yard mark, and then we might have a coach who's telling us there's a 50-yard mark. There is an end zone, and most of us cannot articulate it. And I cannot articulate it. Me not respecting my worth and my energy is keeping me with looking at that 30-yard line. I have people like Mary Rose that shows me the 50-yard line of what's possible. if I were to respect my worth and energy. The true question is once I do that, what does that end zone look like? And what does that look like for you? And so the other piece of this about rules are necessary, structures are necessary. There are people who are doing loving actions for you, even though it might be causing you frustration. You might, and sometimes I feel like I want to get to a place where I want to throw like a toddler tantrum because I want something right now. I don't want to wait anymore. I don't, because I'm tired or because I haven't been respecting my energy. So I'm putting myself in a situation where I'm physically drained. And so I want that assistant, like was in that previous comment. And I don't really care about the financial situations that we're in. I'm just going to figure it out, even if that means I'm going to work for free for the rest of my career because what I'm getting paid is going to go to my assistant, which doesn't make any sense. But when they're telling me that I have to wait, and I say they because now I'm thinking about Josh too, but when I'm getting that pushback, it is a loving pushback, and we need to view it that way. Because there are people who show up and are helping us because we are human and we're not perfect and we're still growing. And as you're growing and you're going through those struggles, these people are showing up and giving you that tough love you need so that you can get to that end zone or to show you that 50-yard line. And there is also always a reason why it's not now. The things usually when you want this toddler tantrum, you're so convinced that you need this right this second. There's a reason why it's not happening. There's growth that needs to be occurred. I can tell you, just even looking at the evolutions of the little bits of milestones, there are things that I'm going through like right now. Like, for example, this is the first year in 5 years that I've started interviewing guests that are not my personal friends and colleagues on the podcast. Completely different kind of thing. And I will tell you that the main driving factor as to why I put it off, I used to say all the time, having guests is not a good fit on the podcast. The podcast is meant for me to share my thoughts. I was afraid. That number one, who listens to my podcast and who am I and how am I worthy enough to be important enough to take anyone else's time for them to want to be on my podcast. Just like I had to struggle with who am I to think anyone will listen to that podcast. And I am very fortunate that I have a group of listeners that I've listened over the last 5 years and the new listeners that come and do that. And I'm so grateful for them and who shows up. I'm so grateful for the guests that showed up in the past year because they've given me that grace as I've been still sorting through this worthiness aspect of feeling like a little bit like a fraud of like, why would you want to be here? They want to genuinely be there. They want to genuinely be with you. And I think even back to the first guys that were truly that kicked off that interview is Adam and Yulia from PTO Genius. And I was really kind of a pain in the butt with them about pushing them about how they're not a fit for the podcast. They don't want to be on my podcast. And Adam in particular kept coming back. And now we did 2 amazing episodes. They basically kicked off the fall and they will be closing out the fall. And the content and the conversations. And I'm just so grateful to know them. And I can't say that enough. All the guests that I've gotten to meet, even some that are in the local community that I just have never gotten to sit down and talk to, I was introduced because of this podcast. It's becoming a gift in a whole nother way. And, bringing it full circle to the HR Intuitive Institute, I cannot wait to see where this evolves and where this goes and what's next here. Because I know that just like the podcast, I'm just starting out and figuring it out, and there's going to be another evolution. And I'm so grateful for those of you that tune in and watch, and those who watch to work love, and those who come and watch the replays, and those who send me the emails. I treasure all of those. And especially now that I'm putting it out there that I struggle to respect my worth and my energy, I think it's really important to share that I'm showing up on the podcast. I'm showing up here every week. And even though I am removing things from my plate, this and that have not moved. The books have not stopped, because these are the places that I have discovered that I am respecting my worth and my energy. I know that I am meant to be creating in these spaces. And so I'm going to continue to show up, and I'm going to continue to share. And much of that is because of all of you being there. Much of that is because of Mary Rose and Josh being supportive and being my boundary when I was not able to set that today. And I'm just so grateful. So ending in gratitude today. But long story short, my message today is to think, who is that person who is doing actions and they're out of love? And where maybe you are struggling with patience because you want something now, or you're trying to force something. And when your desire and is requiring you to force something into being, it's not meant to happen right now. And you've got to trust that there's a reason. And you've got to be grateful for those who are reminding you of just the way things need to work right now. That is a gift. Okay? So thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the HR Intuitive and Institute. Lesson number 68, rules are necessary. I will see you next week for lesson number 69. We're going to have to move the live time because I am actually in a training. So I have to think about that. So stay tuned and stay posted. If you are not a member of our Heart Center Patreon page, you might want to join that because I post all the announcements there and all the links for the lives. And also, if you don't want to do that, then subscribe to our YouTube channel, because anytime I go live, it will send you a fun little notification as long as you hit the little bell. But until next time, have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. And thank you so much for joining me. Bye.